Hello everyone. I'm so happy to see you back on my channel. Today, I'll bring you another emotional episode, the love story of Diep and James. But this time, it's not about peaceful days in the pomelo garden or quiet afternoons on the farm anymore. Tonight, a sudden incident strikes. Little Nee suddenly has a high fever and must be rushed to the hospital in the middle of a heavy rainstorm. On the way there, James tries to stay calm, while Diep trembles, holding her child's hand tightly as tears keep falling. No one knows whether Nee will make it through this critical night. It's a long night filled with tears, worry, and prayers. Will love and faith be strong enough to help them overcome this challenge? Stay tuned to watch the full video to find out what happens next. And don't forget to like, share, and leave your feelings in the comments below. Late at night. Outside, the rain poured heavily, each drop striking the old tiled roof in a relentless rhythm that echoed through the silence. The wind howled, slipping through the half-open window and carrying a biting chill into every corner of the house. The smell of damp earth mixed with the wind, thickening the air, heavy and suffocating. Inside the small room, the dim yellow light flickered weakly, casting a trembling glow over little Nee's pale face. Diep lay turned toward her daughter, meaning only to pull the blanket up, but froze. Her hand touched the girl's forehead, scorching hot, like burning coal. A shiver ran down her spine. She placed her hand there again, hoping she was mistaken, but the heat only grew stronger. "No, this isn't right," Diep whispered, heart pounding wildly. She leaned closer and saw that Nee's lips had turned pale, sweat beading along her temples. Seconds later, the child's body began to twitch, small, jerky convulsions that made Diep's breath catch in her throat. "James. Nee's burning up. She's having a seizure," she cried, voice trembling, on the edge of tears. James jolted awake, eyes snapping open in the flickering light. He jumped up, barefoot, and rushed to the bed. One look at his daughter's face, pale, lips bluish, sent a wave of terror through him. He pressed his hand to her forehead and felt the scorching heat radiating off her skin. Panic surged, but he forced himself to stay steady. "Calm down, Diep. I'll drive you both to the hospital now," he said, though his throat was dry and tight. He quickly scooped Nee into his arms, holding her close, as if letting go even for a second might make her slip away forever. Diep scrambled after him, fumbling for a towel and coat, her trembling hands dropping her phone to the floor. The door flew open, cold wind rushed in, and rain lashed across the porch. James hunched over to shield the child, running toward the car as Diep struggled to keep the towel from being blown away. Their footsteps echoed through the storm, blending with thunder and the muffled sound of sobs lost to the rain. The engine roared to life, headlights cutting through the downpour. Diep held Nee tightly in her arms, eyes wet, whispering again and again, "Please, baby, stay with me, don't sleep, listen to mommy, don't sleep." James gripped the steering wheel, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Every raindrop hitting the windshield sounded like the pounding of his own heart. In his mind, only one thought remained: get to the hospital, as fast as possible. A long night began, filled with fear, the roar of the storm, and the unending rhythm of rain tapping against the world outside. The rain poured down in blinding sheets. Cold gusts of wind lashed against the car, producing long, eerie whistles that sliced through the night. The road was slick and uneven, rainwater swirling into eddies beneath the faint yellow glow of the roadside lamps. The windshield fogged over again and again, even with the wipers working at full speed, they couldn't clear the torrent of rain crashing down. Everything ahead was a blur, a ghostly haze of shadow and fractured light, forcing James to squint hard, his heart pounding violently in his chest. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly that the veins on his hands stood out stark white. Sweat mingled with rain, running down his temples, but he didn't notice. Each breath came shallow and tense. His eyes burned red, he couldn't tell if it was from the rain, the exhaustion, or sheer fear. Forcing himself to stay focused, James glued his gaze to the road, drowning in the storm, as if losing concentration for even a second might destroy everything. In the back seat, Diep clutched little knee tightly to her chest. She sat askew, trembling uncontrollably. Her hair clung to her face, soaked through, rain and tears blended as they slid down her pale cheeks. Her fingers gripped the blanket wrapped around her daughter, desperate to hold on to whatever warmth remained against the cold wind. Nee lay still, her small body trembling faintly with each bump of the car, her breathing thin and fragile, like a dying flame. "Please, please don't let anything happen, my baby, please don't," Diep sobbed softly, her voice breaking, a faint, choked whisper drowned beneath the rain. Every word pierced James's chest like a blade. He clenched the wheel harder, his knuckles white, tendons straining beneath his skin. He stole a quick glance at the rearview mirror and saw Diep bowed over, hugging their child so tightly that her shoulders trembled. In that moment, a raw terror seized him, fear of losing his daughter, and fear of losing the woman behind him who was breaking apart. James gritted his teeth, voice hoarse as he said, "Hold on, we're almost there, hang on, Diep. I won't let anything happen." But even he could hear his voice trembling. Outside, the rain refused to stop, it only grew heavier, angrier. The wind screamed, trying to devour the road ahead. The car shook violently as it plowed through flooded patches, water splashing high, covering both sides of the vehicle. Every turn of the wheel felt like a heartbeat skipped. Every curve was a silent prayer. The only sound that remained was the pounding of rain against the roof, relentless, merciless. The world outside seemed to vanish, leaving only 3 souls trapped in the storm. A man fighting to steer through chaos. A mother clinging to her child in desperate prayer. And a small, fragile girl battling for her next breath. Time seemed to freeze. Every second stretched endlessly. In the dim beam of the headlights, the road ahead stretched into infinity, and inside their hearts, the fear of losing what they loved most tightened with every breath, squeezing away the last fragile trace of hope. At last, after what felt like an endless journey, the car screeched into the hospital courtyard, its engine roaring through the pounding rain. Water splashed up in waves, coating the hood in a sheet of white. James slammed on the brakes, the tires shrieked against the slick concrete. He threw open the door, the storm's wind howling so violently it tore at his coat. The rain lashed his face, icy and sharp, but he didn't care. He rushed to the back seat, scooping little knee into his arms. Her small body was limp, her breathing so faint he had to press his ear against her chest just to be sure her heart was still beating. His face went pale, panic flickered in his eyes. Then, clutching her tightly, he sprinted through the hospital entrance, shouting, "Emergency! Please, help! My daughter's burning up, she's having seizures." His voice echoed down the empty corridor, blending with the roar of rain and distant thunder. Seconds later, the emergency room doors burst open. A team of doctors and nurses rushed out, pushing a gurney. They carefully took the child from his trembling arms, her tiny body looked swallowed by the white blanket, her face terrifyingly pale. "Please wait outside. We'll do everything we can," one doctor said quickly before disappearing down the long, sterile hallway. The sound of the gurney wheels rattled sharply against the floor, fading into the distance. The door to the emergency room slammed shut with a sharp click, cutting off all sound inside. Outside, the world seemed to go still. Only the pounding rain on the metal roof and the low whistle of the wind filled the silence, along with the heavy, unsteady rhythm of 2 breaking hearts. Diep collapsed onto a nearby bench, her hands clenched so tightly her nails dug into her skin. She didn't feel the pain. Her clothes were drenched, hair plastered to her neck, her face ghostly white. Rainwater and tears ran together down her cheeks. Each breath trembled as though it took every ounce of strength she had left. "Please, please save my child," she whispered hoarsely, voice cracking like something inside her had shattered. James stood beside her, frozen. The fluorescent light above them cast a harsh glow, outlining every drop of rain sliding down his weary face. His eyes locked on the closed emergency doors, the barrier behind which his little girl was fighting for her life. His jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists so hard his knuckles turned white. Finally, he crouched beside Diep, taking her trembling hand in his. His voice shook, low but steady. "She's going to be okay. Trust me, trust our little girl." Diep looked up, eyes brimming with tears. She couldn't speak, she simply nodded, barely. Her cold fingers gripped his hand tightly, desperate, fragile. They sat there together in silence. Their breaths mixed with the rhythm of the storm outside, filling the space with a quiet, haunting stillness. The corridor stretched long and empty, its white lights cold and unfeeling. On that hard bench, two soaked, exhausted souls sat side by side, clinging to each other as if letting go meant losing everything. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, time stood still. Every second was another heartbeat of fear, another silent prayer. And between life and loss, James and Diep could do nothing but wait. Dawn broke after a long, stormy night. The first faint rays of sunlight slipped through layers of gray clouds, filtering past the fogged hospital windows, leaving pale golden streaks across the cold hallway floor. The rain still pattered softly outside, no longer furious, just gentle drops falling in rhythm, like the calm sigh after a night of chaos. Inside the quiet hospital, the sharp scent of antiseptic lingered, blending with the soft echo of nurses' footsteps and the steady beeping of heart monitors from nearby rooms. James and Diep sat side by side on a long plastic bench in the emergency corridor. Neither spoke. Neither had slept. Their eyes stayed fixed on the closed white door ahead, the door behind which their little girl was fighting through the night. At 6 o'clock, the door creaked open. A sliver of bright white light spilled out, followed by a middle-aged doctor in a damp lab coat. He removed his mask, wiped the sweat from his brow, and smiled, a warm, gentle smile that immediately loosened the tight knot in their chests. "She's very lucky," he said kindly. "It's just a sudden fever from a common cold. The high temperature caused the convulsions, but it's nothing serious. We've brought her fever down, she's sleeping deeply now. She'll wake up soon." Diep froze. Her eyes widened as if she couldn't yet believe the words she'd heard. Then, all at once, the emotions that had been trapped inside her burst free. She broke down, crying like a child, raw, shaking sobs spilling out uncontrollably. Hot tears streamed down her pale cheeks, dripping onto her trembling hands. "It's my fault. I didn't know how to help her. I'm such a bad mother," she wept. James sat beside her, silent. Then he gently drew her into his arms, his hand resting firmly on her shoulder. His touch was steady, warm, real. The fear, the rain, the exhaustion, all of it seemed to fade the moment he whispered beside her ear. "No one's perfect, Diep," he said softly, his voice hoarse but calm. "You did everything you could. I know how much you love her. What matters is, she's still here, still smiling at us. That's all that counts." Diep buried her face against his chest, still crying, but the trembling slowly eased. The warmth of his embrace seeped into her, grounding her heart again. Outside, the sky had changed too, the rain had finally stopped, the clouds breaking apart to let the early light pour through the glass, bathing their faces in a gentle, golden glow. The hospital door opened again. A young nurse pushed out a small bed, Nee's bed. The child's face was pale, but her eyelids fluttered slightly. The moment Diep saw her, she jumped to her feet, running forward to take her daughter's small hand. "Nee, my baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. The little girl stirred, her lashes quivering before her eyes slowly opened. Her voice was weak, her breath shallow, but her smile was pure and soft as sunlight. "Mom," she murmured. "I'm sorry. I'm okay now, please don't cry." Diep's throat tightened. She stroked her daughter's hair, tears still glimmering in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of relief. "It's okay now, sweetheart. Mommy's just crying because she's happy." James stood beside them, eyes glistening. He placed a gentle hand on Diep's shoulder and looked down at their child. A tired but grateful smile spread across his face. In his eyes, the whole world had narrowed to this, his small, fragile universe of two people, his wife and his little girl, safe and alive. Morning light filled the room, soft and bright. The scent of disinfectant still lingered, but it no longer felt cold. Outside the window, the sky turned clear, and the last raindrops slid from the eaves, catching the sun as they fell. The long night had finally ended, and before them stretched a new morning, peaceful, warm, and full of hope. After finishing the discharge papers, the three of them left the hospital that morning, stepping into the fresh, rain-washed air. The world outside carried the scent of damp earth, cool, clean, and full of relief. Diep sat in the back seat, gently cradling little Nee, whose head rested softly on her mother's shoulder, breathing steady and calm. James drove slowly, his face still showing traces of exhaustion, yet his eyes were calm now. Every glance at the rearview mirror brought a quiet smile. The road home was still wet, glimmering under the golden morning sun. Rows of trees along the roadside sparkled with raindrops, their leaves swaying as if welcoming them back. After all the fear and chaos, their little house by the pomelo garden came into view, peaceful and familiar, like a promise kept. James stopped the car in front of the yard, got out first, and opened the door for his wife and daughter. Dawn, their loyal dog, burst out from the house, tail wagging furiously, eyes bright with joy. It seemed he too could feel the warmth of reunion. He barked softly, pressing his head against James's legs before circling around Diep and Nee with excitement. In the small kitchen, steam began to rise. James threw on an apron and carefully cooked a pot of plain rice porridge, the light aroma spreading gently through the house. Diep sat by the bed, helping her daughter sit up and feeding her small spoonfuls at a time. Though still weak, Nee smiled faintly after each bite. Don lay quietly at the foot of the bed, head resting on his paws, eyes half closed as if also resting after a long night of waiting. No one spoke much. The house was filled only with the soft sounds of the spoon clinking against the bowl, the breeze slipping through the open window, and the steady rhythm of their breathing. Yet in that silence, their eyes met, filled with love and gratitude. One look was enough to say everything, that they had weathered the storm and were still holding on to each other. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. Sunlight filtered through the pomelo leaves, scattering golden reflections across the damp brick floor. Birds began to sing somewhere beyond the garden, blending with the aroma of porridge and the quiet laughter of little Nee. Inside the small house, warmth spread gently through the air, soft, tender, and peaceful. And in that morning light, there was no trace left of the night's terror, only three souls sitting together, safe, whole, and loving each other as if no storm had ever passed. Stay tuned for the next episode, where James and Diep's journey continues. Not just peaceful days after the storm, but new challenges waiting ahead. If you've ever had someone who stood by you through your hardest, most vulnerable moments, share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support James, Diep, and little me on their heartfelt journey to build a simple yet genuine happiness together.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến những video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Lý Tử Diệp và CEO James. Thì mọi người thân mến, thì như kiểu James và Diệp thì đã yêu nhau một khoảng thời gian khá là dài rồi. Tuy nhiên là cuộc sống của họ thì vẫn đang còn rất là nhiều khó khăn nữa và vẫn chưa thể hoàn toàn có thể hạnh phúc được khi James đã từ bỏ. Anh không còn là một giám đốc nổi tiếng, giám đốc với sự giàu có nữa. Anh đã từ bỏ vị trí ở trong công ty của cha mình để về chọn Diệp, người con gái anh yêu, mặc cho cha anh phản đối và anh quyết định là sẽ khởi nghiệp lại. Cũng rất may mắn thì anh được mẹ của anh ủng hộ nên là cũng giúp đỡ rất là nhiều. James và Diệp hiện đang ở chung với nhau và ở chung với bé Nhi nữa. Thì liệu chuyện gì sẽ xảy ra tiếp theo, và hôm nay bé Nhi bị ốm thì tình hình tiếp theo sẽ như thế nào, mời mọi người đón xem ở những video sau nha. Tạm biệt mọi người.